Hey guys, this is James Ignatowicz, and I'm gonna show you one of my favorite drills for players who did not play tennis, they have no tennis background, and they wanna learn how to hit a hard overhead, is to actually do this. You stand at the kitchen line, and you throw the ball down and you make it bounce at the opposing kitchen line. Because one of the biggest problems with players who did not come from a tennis background with their overhead is they don't understand that it's pretty much just a throw. So if you played tennis, you would know a serve and an overhead are not too dissimilar. You just take it and you throw it. The only thing with the overhead is you want to get it down, obviously. You're not trying to throw it and then hit the opposing fence. So for this drill, you stand here and then you throw it down. And if you hit the opposing kitchen line, you're in a good spot. The wrist snap. So when you played tennis, you know that when you serve, you're always snapping your wrist. Same thing with the overhead. But in pickleball, a lot of these players are arming the overhead. So they're not getting all the way up and they're not extending. So the drill to fix this is to actually exaggerate the wrist snap and only snap your wrist. If you want to do it right, take a basket, go out there and drill, stand open stance, and just all wrist snap. Don't do anything else. Totally focus on the snapping of the wrist, going from high to low, being loose with it, and that's all you gotta do. A wide base. So I don't mean super wide like this, but you want your feet to be at least the width of your shoulders. Reason for that is when the ball's up in the air, there's wind, there's other elements, there's a long time for that ball to be up in the air, and things are gonna be changing, and the most important thing with the overhead is being on balance. So I've seen way too many players with the overhead try to hit it like this with their feet very close together, and you are naturally going to be less balanced when your feet are that close together. The wider your feet are, the more balanced you are generally. So when I hit an overhead, I'm trying to have my feet wide like this, and I am also coming back facing the side of the court. So I am not coming back like this. I can get back more quickly. Instead of backpedaling like this, I can get back more quickly side shuffling. And fun fact, I was teaching a clinic 3 weeks ago. Somebody tried to back up like this and they fell. So you don't want to end up like her. I'm not gonna say who it was, but that's another key tip. Not making contact with the ball behind your shoulder. Okay, so you're trying to get this ball down, and the best way to get a ball down is to meet it out in front. It's the same thing with a counter. If you're way out here on a counter, it's gonna go down, and then the closer you get to your body, the more it goes up. If you ever think back to a time where you were super on a counter or super out in front of a counter, you might have missed it in the net. So with an overhead, it's the same exact thing. If you're making contact with an overhead back here, it's probably gonna go up. You're probably gonna miss it long unless you don't hit it that hard in the first place. So you wanna be meeting the ball in front of your shoulder so that you can get it down, because the natural swing of the overhead is such that if it's back here, it goes up, more in front, the more it goes down. And the most important part about any shot in pickleball generally is getting it down. Yeah. That's all I have for this one. How do you hit the point ending overhead? How do you finish the point with an overhead? A lot of people struggle with it. One very important part of the overhead is making it bounce as deep as possible if you are not going for an angle. If it bounces here or within about 3 feet of the baseline, that is going to be significantly harder to get back than one that bounces here. When a pickleball bounces, it slows down so much. So if you want to put an overhead away, if you're not going for the angle, you want it to bounce in this part of the court. You do want to give yourself a little bit of margin for error with the overhead, because you don't want to be missing an overhead. At this point, if you have an overhead, you're probably going to win the point. You're definitely favored, so you don't want to miss it. You want to aim in this part of the court and give yourself some margin for error as it relates to wideness in the court, because you're already aiming very deep. So when I try to put these overheads away when I go for depth, I am aiming in this part of the court, because the deeper the overhead bounces, the more likely it is to skid anyway. And if it bounces here, it's not gonna be bouncing high, and it's very tough to get back. Putting the overhead away using angle, and it is very effective when done right. For the most part, when you're putting away the overhead for angle, you should be going cross court, especially if you are closer to the sideline. So if you're over here on the sideline and you try to put it away with an angle that bounces here, that is not much of an angle at all, and it's actually pretty easy for them to get back. However, if I were to hit the overhead cross court like that, that is a very, very strong angle because it's going all the way across the court and you actually have a lot more space to hit into than you think. So for example, to hit a cross court angle overhead, if I was on this side of the court, I would go to that corner. And once it bounces, it's gonna take off and the point's probably gonna be over. You'll probably have won it as follows. Wow, that was a little better than I was trying to hit it, but that's the point. If you hit it cross court with an angle anywhere in that area of the court, the ball is gonna bounce and take off. It's probably gonna hit the side fence, and you'll see pros do this all the time. One more very important part of the overhead is you want to have your shoulders oriented to the sideline. So it's a closed stance with the shoulders. You are not hitting the overhead like this. I've seen way too many people hit an overhead like that. That is not how you generate power with the overhead. It is a lot easier to get more power and more leverage if you are faced this way, so that when you hit it, your shoulder turn is bringing your right arm forward and you're able to get way more leverage like that. You'll hit it significantly harder. Turn your shoulders, side shuffle back, and when you hit it, let your shoulders do that. Thanks for watching, everybody. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel and also subscribe to my free coaching newsletter. The link to subscribe to that newsletter will be below.